Good. All right, we're ready? Ready? Okay. Good morning, everybody. My name is Kyle Setchel. I was looking around for anything related to IDM because I've been working on IDM this year quite a bit and seeing it falling down repeatedly. I'm like, okay, you know what? I can't be the only guy. So that's kind of what precipitated this session. So let's get right into it. The session name is How to Keep IDM Standing, so that's pretty self-explanatory. And a little bit about me. I work for a fintech company called Priority Technology Holdings. We are in the fintech world and pretty much all the thing you really need to know. My official title is Senior Cloud Engineer Team Lead. I tend to lead more into the team lead side, so I got about a team of 5 engineers that I work with. Obviously, a little bit of vExpert splashing there. Agenda. What is IDM? How is it typically deployed? Some of the architectural pieces of how it gets put together, very, very high level. When it goes sideways, what are the kind of things that would make it go sideways? Some of the big components in there that kind of fall over. And then a little bit of the remediation overview. So this is very much more of a, hey, I'm going to talk to you about IDM, but I have such a short period of time. At the very, very end, I have a super dense slide of a whole bunch of links to keep it standing up. You guys are more than welcome to come talk to me about it later, and I'll get you a copy of the slide so you can have all the links too if you want. So IDM. Who here runs IDM? Okay, we got a few. So IDM is a better way of saying, besides the bastard child of Workspace ONE Access, for several reasons, as you guys are well aware. And obviously, everybody knows that it's for authentication. Some people don't, but basically, it's an intermediary for authenticating. So VMware said, hey, we want to do something that plugs into some of our products and allows that one place to set up authentication. Instead of just dumping it on LDAP, you can have multiple authentication sources, and IDM would be the place that kind of channels it all in there. So deployment scenario. Most people use IDM through vRealize Suite Lifecycle Manager. So I am really focusing on that particular deployment scenario. Most people do IDM through that way. And as such, there is a focus of consume everything from an IDM perspective through vRealize Suite Lifecycle Manager. That is a little bit of a mouthful. So then once you do that, then you want to, it's going to guide you through the process of, hey, let's stand up IDM. And they're like, well, do you want to do a cluster? And, oh, cluster means HA. So yeah, I mean, 3 is better than 1, right? We'll get to some of that fun later. And then on top of that, you're going to need to throw a load balancer in front of it. So bring your load balancer. There's no load balancer to be had. Must have. So this is an extremely simplified version of what's going on. So if you're authenticating, you got Joku user. It's going to go through the load balancer, so it's going to drop it onto one of the nodes of IDM. And then once you're auth, then it's going to, I just use 2, but you can auth to VROPS, auth to NSX Manager, VRA, VRO, I think even too, login site, I believe. So there's a couple of flavors there of places that you could auth to. vCenter is not one of them. So when it goes sideways, vRealize Suite Lifecycle Manager is the master control program, so Tron reference. So with that, they want you to consume it through vRealize Suite Lifecycle Manager, like I said before. But some of the things under the cover is they decided in IDM, let's put in Postgrass. So now we have Postgrass on every single node. Okay, we've got a database in there. All right, well, now we need Elastic. So now we need Elastic on all 3 of those pieces. And now we need some messaging components. Let's throw rabbitmq on there. Most people don't think, I mean, maybe you guys might think so, but I think having those 3 major components in something as small as just like an auth appliance is a little bit heavy, and you are absolutely right. So I wouldn't dream of putting all 3 of these into one product, but let's shove them all in there and see what happens. So now we have IDM stand up. IDM's great for the first week, maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then something happens. Maybe you have a host die. Maybe somebody accidentally needs to move a VM around, so they shut down one of your IDM nodes, which is a huge no-no. If you want to shut down anything in IDM, you have to go through vRealize Suite Lifecycle Manager, which has a shutdown option. But if you don't do that, now things are out of sync. So, and if you move 2 of them, now you've just lost quorum on a 3-node cluster. And then when it comes up, it doesn't just figure it out. So there's a lot of things that break there. And usually, Postgrass is the very first one that breaks. The other ones kind of come along later once you fix Postgrass. And once you fix some of the problems with there, then you can just start remediating like Elastic and rabbitmq. Those things kind of fall into place. So when we talk about some of the common problems that we see besides those things falling over, the other things that we see a lot is the root, the admin, and the SSH user accounts. They're on extremely short leashes for expirations. And there's no nice, fancy way of it ever telling you that that's the case. So if those things get locked out, now you need to go into single user mode and reset passwords. So that's one of the very first get-go of being like, okay, if you guys are going to stand this up, immediately get logged into the appliance, change those expirations so that they're way out in the future. Or just set it to 0, but I did not tell you to do that. Other common problems, I talked about the Postgres stuff, but a lot of the other problems that you'll see are sometimes they're not necessarily precipitated by anything, or they are precipitated by everything. Let's say you run out of disk space. Well, why would you run out of disk space? This is just doing auth logs. And the problems is you have, for example, NSX Manager I talked a few slides ago. One of the things as part of the auth process that you're going to do is when you go to auth, it's going to write up an API token to the NSX asks, be like, okay, I want to authenticate, and it asks for an API token, so it gets that token so it can communicate. Well, no, that token is good for quite a while, but there are some products like NSXT right now, for example, that every time it asks to get an API token, it should reuse it, but it doesn't. So in my particular case, the database size was like 30 or 50 gigabytes. And it would fill up 30 gigs of API tokens in a database in a week. So we're like, and the only way that you would ever get to where it would truncate it, those API tokens have to expire out, and that's not a short period of time. There's also a cleanup process that it also does in the database, but that takes 90 days before it starts rolling stuff over. So if you're filling stuff up in a week, it's a problem. So then database fills up, IDM falls over. So now you need to figure out how to fix that. Some of the links I have later. So this is, I got a little bit quicker here than I wanted to be, but this is the links that I wanted you guys to see to take away home with you. Some of these are quite lengthy, ready reads, and usually the only time you're really going to go into them is when something has fallen over. And getting through these is, you have to read it a couple times because they really condense a lot of the information there. But I'll give a little bit of a go-round here. I mentioned earlier about the Postgres SQL database increasing size because of the API tokens. That's how you expand it. And it talks briefly about what the API tokens and the problems that have with the API tokens. Postgres in general having issues, so let's say you lost quorum and you need to get it back. How do you promote something to be a master? How do you make sure these people are in standby? What happens if Postgres is down? What happens if there's inconsistencies? How do you fail over nodes? How do you force nodes to resync? This kind of stuff. Elastic is usually just a wait game. For the Elastic nodes to come up on each one, it's 14 minutes. It's no joke. There's a timer, and it takes 14 minutes. Sometimes what happens there is I don't know how much you know about Elastic, but this idea of how much each node's work is done, they talk about in shards. So when you start talking about, okay, we have these shards that need to get allocated to these nodes, and they need to be balanced out. So that's how you have fix uneven shards. And then rabbitmq is almost dead easy, but it'll get you. Because IDM will work without rabbitmq for a while, but there's obviously ways to fix it, and just to make sure that the nodes are communicating with each other for some of the crosstalk stuff. And there's that more generic one that sometimes you see a lot around this config JSON file, which makes no sense about why it gets corrupted. Nothing's happening, but it's just a generic JSON file, and it'll just get bungled up with a bunch of junk in it, and you don't know why. And then the error for it is see log for details, because that's not generic enough. Because I love generic errors. You guys like generic errors? All right. That's what I thought. All right. So, last but not least, so I went through this whole journey that I went through. I ran into a guy at GSS. His name is Vignesh, and Vignesh, I guess he treats it as like a, I don't know, he almost become a darling of his. So he and I know each other by first name at GSS. But last but not least, if you don't like it, you can always go into vRealize Suite Lifecycle Manager. If something's broken, you just can't fix it, you can just blow it away in there and redeploy it. So there is an option to, if all else fails. And obviously, I have a survey out there, so please say something awesome. But you guys got a minute and a half? Anything? Questions there?